The crowd charged the stadium, which was completely sold out, a troubling fate moment. Devoted admirers swarmed Taylor Swift under the lights, and their ecstatic yells filled the air like a sea of sound. The final scene of her much-anticipated show arrived. Travis Kelce, who had been sitting quietly behind her, had never been more anxious in his life, and he focused on every step. However, their romance had been the talk of the town for months, fueled by paparazzi and rumors among fans. It was different tonight. It went beyond the jokes and the current relationship. Taylor wanted to tell her something important, something that would change her life. This evening's rumors were revealed. Taylor carried a microphone as she went elegantly to the center of the platform, displaying her impeccable work ethic. Her dress glistened in a flawless sky like stars. As her fans' expectations of her speech waned, so did the music. Her smile softened as she gazed out over the sea of faces. "I have a special announcement to make tonight." The crowd fell still as she spoke in a light, effortless voice, and the ground appeared to hold its breath in anticipation. Standing backstage, Travis's heart raced, and he was unable to take his eyes off her. She had always exuded confidence and coolness, but now she seemed different, with a hint of emotion in each step. Taylor paused to let tension to rise. She then took a big breath, speaking steadily, yet with a warmth that Travis could sense from his position. "I have been thinking a lot about life, love, and the future. Well, tonight I want to share with all of you something very near to my heart," Taylor began, her eyes sparkling as she looked around the crowd. With his knuckles white and his heart hammering in his chest, Travis, whose legs felt like jelly, grasped the side of the wall backstage. Was this how he operated? Was she about to drop a bombshell on the entire planet? A thought swirled in his thoughts. In that one moment, Travis felt time slow down as she gasped again. The audience was heated, but all he could hear was the hammering of his own heart. Taylor began by saying, "I am naive," in a voice that was barely audible, as though the words had to fight their way to the top. The crowd gasped and cheered wildly as the stadium plunged into shock. Travis's thoughts went blank for a while. Pregnant, the words echoed in his ears. He struggled to grasp it, blinking rapidly. Even he was surprised by this, but he had anticipated it and imagined what it would be like with Taylor by his side. He found it difficult to concentrate on the action on stage. His eyes were focused on the screen behind her, which displayed a picture of the two of them with their faces softly lit by the golden sunset, while his hands shook furiously as he staggered back. The cheers and shouts faded away. Then, the ultrasound image materialized. When Taylor became pregnant, Travis realized how far their relationship had progressed. Everything in his life altered all at once, but it still felt as though nothing had changed. In his life, he had been getting ready for a lot of things. Football stadiums full of boisterous fans and the cacophony of never-ending press conferences. However, this was not like anything he had ever imagined. The magnitude of what had happened struck him like a goods train, jarring him from head to toe. It was only when he noticed his hands shaking in front of him that he realized he had begun to shiver. As he watched Taylor's smile, his mouth dried up and his legs barely held him up. There was no game here. His life was like this. Backstage, they had built this small existence together. The trembling began in his hands and spread to other parts of his body, including one of his coworkers and a buddy he had known since childhood. Travis nodded, but he was still unable to speak. Emotions had swept over him like a raging tide, and he was still absorbing them. She saw Taylor take a brief break from the microphone, as though to give the audience a chance to process the news, reached forward, put a hand on his shoulder, and leaped forward. She looked across the audience, and then she looked directly at Travis, giving him the smile that always made his heart skip a beat, the one that told him all he needed to know. A lump formed in Travis's throat. Then an unexpected event occurred. The turmoil within him was calmed by a wave of silence. Taylor wasn't by himself. They were in this together, and they would confront each other no matter how crazy or uncertain the world appeared. Travis Kelce took a big breath as he considered Taylor, the little life, the future they were building, and how much he wanted to be a part of it all. He wasn't considering playing football as his next game. Travis forced his way through the chaos backstage to meet her. The crowd was still roaring, but he could no longer hear it. He could only hear his own footsteps coming towards her, the lady who had transformed his life in ways he had never even considered. As he entered the stage, Taylor turned to face him. As she reached for his hand, her smile widened, their fingers intertwined, and the shaking that had gradually taken hold of him began to subside in favor of something even more potent. Travis Kelce realized for the first time in his life that everything had suddenly altered. It was anticipation for the path they would take together. And it was love, rather than merely dread. Taylor Swift was expecting a child, and the two of them were going to go on the most ambitious journey yet, under the title, The Trembling Truth. With lights flashing around him, Travis Kelce stood on the edge of the platform, his breath shallow. The crowd's thunderous shout blended excitement and anticipation. This was the most anxious he had ever been before a game, much less a public appearance. Again, though, this was unusual. The scope of this extended beyond football. This was about the woman he had been pursuing, Taylor Swift, whose presence had made him feel both completely strong and weak at the same time. The surprise was supposed to come tonight. She assured them that it would be a memorable experience for them both. At her most recent performance, Taylor had invited him to take the stage. The crowd roared louder, but he had no idea what this incident truly meant. Travis's heart pounded. Everything around him seemed to be drowned out by his heartbeat. He turned to look at Taylor, who was standing next to him in her glittering, flashy outfit. Her beauty and innate ability to enthrall the audience truly astounded him, and she had a mysterious smile on her face. Even though she was usually a formidable opponent, her eyes seemed different now. She seemed rather peaceful, a serenity that made Travis's stomach roll around. "You set?" Already, with her palm almost touching his, Taylor whispered. Travis swallowed deliberately. "I believe this," he remarked in a barely audible voice. He spent the entire week practicing so he could perform his role flawlessly. There was no script for what was going to happen, he realized as he stood beside her. To prove her value to him, he had even planned a surprise, a lavish gift for her. He would not have been prepared for this in the slightest. The audience fell silent when the music ended. With her shadow illuminated by the spotlight, Taylor stepped forward. All eyes were on her in the arena. Like the quiet before a storm, there was a palpable tension in the air. Travis was having trouble breathing. It was difficult for him to comprehend why his legs felt like jelly or why his hands trembled. "Good evening, everybody," Taylor's lovely voice boomed out. "Thank you for coming tonight, everyone. You truly don't understand how much this means to me." A knowing smile tugged at Taylor's lips as she raised her hands to implore the audience to calm down despite the raucous cheers. "Even though you've all witnessed a lot of amazing things, tonight is something very different." She looked at Travis across the room. "This one is for the future, even though I have been blessed with a ton of love and wonderful memories." His heart skipped a beat when her eyes met his. He sensed the electricity between them, and Travis stopped breathing, but something about her made him even more anxious. He had no idea where this was going, but the butterflies in his stomach were nodding themselves. With her hands on her stomach, Taylor took a deep breath before slowly turning to face the crowd. Life can change at any time. "I'm going to share something really personal with all of you tonight." The ground beneath Travis changed. His cosmos was tilted on its axis. He had no idea what lied ahead, but he could feel the weight of what she was about to expose in his bones. "Travis is," she spoke softly, yet firmly. "You have supported me consistently and in ways I never would have thought possible," she remarked. "I'm going to give you something more now, a gift that will alter our lives forever." Travis felt his knees falter as Taylor hesitated. Around him, everything seemed to stop. He attempted to remain calm as his heart pounded in his ears as the room shrank until it was just the two of them on that stage. What was it she wanted to know, Travis? Taylor began by simply placing her hand on his arm. Her eyes gleamed with unshed tears as he lowered his head. "One day, we'll have children." Everything paused for a brief second. Travis's mind raced, and his heart seemed to skip a beat before doubling in speed. Above his own rapid pulse, his speech came out as a raspy whisper, hardly discernible. Travis heard only a hammering in his chest, but the crowd had gone wild at her announcement. It seemed as if the ground beneath him had disappeared and he was flying in space, disconnected from reality, while his head whirled and his eyesight became blurry. He glanced down at Taylor, who had a soft smile on her face and a hand resting on her expanding belly. His knees felt like they could buckle at any second. He was struck like a tidal wave by a child. Their child. "Travis is," she repeated, in a gentle, affectionate tone. "Our order calls for a baby." In an attempt to steady himself, Travis reached out to Taylor as his legs began to give way. He was having trouble finding his words, and his hands were shaking. "I won't be able to either. There's too much of this going on," Taylor said with a little giggle before cupping his face. "While you wanted to hear it from me right now, I understand that it's a lot. Travis, you will be a father, and I will be the best partner I can be." As the reality of what she had just spoken set him, tears welled up in his eyes. His mind traveled in 1,000 simultaneous directions. A baby? Is he a potential parent? This was not what he was expecting. He was unsure of his ability to be the father he desired, but he was certain of one thing. For this, he was prepared to battle. For their household. For her. "I'll do my best to be a father." "I swear, Taylor," Travis responded, his voice cracking with passion. He barely heard the cheers that broke out from the audience. He continued to filter through the plethora of feelings that were coursing through him. He had been a self-assured athlete and a superb field player, but nothing had ever prepared him for this sort of love and this kind of responsibility. With a smile, Taylor wiped a tear directly from his cheek. "I know you, Travis, and we'll work this out. Even if all we need is each other, I am aware that it won't be easy. Not from a football match, but from love, which is far more precious. Not from a football match, but from love, which is far more precious." For the first time in his life, Travis Kelce was trembling.